we need to tie the data economy to the outcomes that people experience. So at the end of the day, are you as a Lyft driver experiencing more agency in your work? Are you experiencing higher pay? Are you experiencing a greater ability to influence the conditions of your work? So Driver Seat is a cooperative built for and by gig workers. So Uber and Lyft drivers, DoorDash delivery people, Postmates delivery people, Uber Eats, Amazon Flex, anybody who is moving goods or people and their work is mediated by an app on a labor platform and a transportation platform. And I think one of the key ways that gig platforms exercise control in the workplace is through kind of behavioral nudges delivered through their app and through a really selective view of your earnings and time information. So ride-hail drivers or delivery workers who use our app get access to unbiased, complete information about their work time, about their work expenses, and about their earnings. And they're able to see how those change over time and how those change in response to different choices that they make about when and where to do their work. We created Driver Seat after taking many Uber and Lyft rides and hearing from drivers that they had gotten into this work because they had been promised this idea that they could be their own boss, that they could make as much money as they wanted on a schedule that worked for them. And what they found was a really different reality, which was that they were making sub-minimum wage, that their work was actually tightly controlled by an app and an algorithm, and that they had very little flexibility about when they could really get out and make money. And at the core of this was the insight that their work was being controlled through the extraction, processing, and then delivering back to them of massive amounts of data via algorithms and app. We were hearing from urban planners and transportation regulators and policymakers in cities across the country that they had, in effect, an entirely new transportation system operating in their city and almost no visibility into it. And without that visibility, no ability to shape the outcomes of it around goals like reducing pollution or congestion or supporting small businesses. And again, at the core of this was that they didn't have the data that they needed to be able to do effective policy making. And so we saw an opportunity there, which was two of the three big stakeholders in this gig economy are lacking the basic information that they need to engage. And it's the gig workers themselves who are producing that information. So if we can use technology to collect and create a vehicle for responsibly sharing information, and if the gig workers can benefit from that themselves, then we have an opportunity to kind of close that information asymmetry loop. And that's why we created Driver Seat. We were interested in a for-profit, self-sustaining business model that would create revenue that would allow us to sustain the organization indefinitely and independently. Two, it was critical to us that as the generators of data, that the gig workers be the primary beneficiaries of that revenue. And three, that gig workers hold governance over it. And so we looked around and thought, well, what kind of organizational form meets those criteria? And what we landed on is what's called a limited cooperative association. And it's basically a cooperative that commits in its bylaws and by the law under which it's incorporated that our gig worker members have 51% at least of governance rights, and 51% at least of profits. And so that majority share is sort of baked into our organizational DNA at a cultural level, but importantly at a legal level as well. I think the beautiful thing about the cooperative model is that it aligns everybody's incentives around trust. And the model is not built around extracting value from one group of people and delivering it to another group of people, but it's really about thinking, how do we maximize the value for all the stakeholders in the cooperative? And so for gig workers, that means both individual insights that are helping them with their own work, but also participating in co-op dividends. For our customers on the analytics side of things, there's a higher level of trust and a higher quality of data because of the source of it. At the most basic level, we make sure that our privacy policy and our terms of service are clear, plain language, and very transparent kind of about our purpose. And we're very transparent about our purpose in all of our organizational materials. So anybody who is working with driver's seat in any capacity knows exactly what we're about and what we're doing. At a much deeper level, our bylaws commit that our board is to be primarily governed by our patron members, which is the people contributing to the co-op via their data. And that governance mechanism sort of helps us set policy all the way at the top. There's one more dimension to it, which is that certain clients may want to engage us in specific projects where they're trying to collect additional data on top of our baseline, and where we go back out to our gig worker members and say, do you want to participate in this particular project? And then they opt in specifically to that project as well. Listen to the people who are generating the data and the people who are using the data, and understand their problems and needs at the most non-technical, sort of through their eyes level. But I think the place to meet people is where they're at. If that's a gig worker that's in their car, or on their bike. Policy-wise, I think long-term, it's really important that workers have data rights to their own data to be able to hold on to it and do what they want with it. There are other schemes that sort of are like paying almost per data point. And we think that that sort of obfuscates the real value of the data, and that the real value of a DoorDash driver's data is about the value of reducing congestion in the city of San Francisco. That's that's $1 billion problem. And workers should be participating in that solution at the $1 billion level, not at the fraction of a cent per per GPS trace level. So I think for the data economy, we need to keep pushing for a view of how data is solving the biggest problems and how generators and owners of that data are participating in the biggest value of those solutions.